Okay, today we're going to focus on making the clearest ice cubes you can possibly make in your home using some pretty simple equipment. And the first piece of equipment that in my view is probably the most important is a little sous vide machine. This is a stick sous vide machine that's commercially available in a variety of places, and that's going to circulate the water and degas the water, which is very important for making clear ice cubes. The other thing you're obviously going to need is a mold. This is a silicone mold for making ice spheres, essentially, not cubes. And what I've done is taken that mold, again, you can buy these anywhere off Amazon, for example, and cut holes in the bottom of those molds. Again, as we're going to see, that's a critical feature, or critical step in making clear ice cubes. That mold is going to be put into a little tub. This is basically a real cheap 2-gallon bucket that I got at Home Depot and cut it down so that it's 8 inches in diameter. When that's filled with water and our mold is in there, we're going to put that into a little insulated box. Here's one that I made out of just a simple basket I had, surrounded by some insulating material with insulating material on the bottom. That again is really important for making ice cubes for reasons that we'll talk about later. And if you don't want to go that far, here's another one I made just out of simple bubble wrap, duct tape, and cardboard. Another thing you're going to need is a simple baster. We probably all have those in our kitchen somewhere. And a hammer and chisel for cutting away the ice that we don't need at the very end of the process. Okay, that's it. I'm going to plug in the sous vide machine, turn it on, and we will sous vide this water at 145 degrees for 1 hour. We're in a preheating period now. The water is currently 125.8. I filled it with hot water. And once this reaches 145 degrees, the timer will start and continue at 145 degrees for 1 hour. In just a few minutes, you're going to see bubbles start forming on the inside of the pot, all the way around and on the stick of the sous vide itself. And that is what we're trying to accomplish, getting the gases out of the water. So we're about 35 minutes into the sous vide process, and you can see that some of the gases have formed bubbles on the stick of the sous vide apparatus itself. That's normal. You'll often see them on the sides of the pot as well. What I do at about this time when I see those bubbles is I'll come in with a spatula and I'll just remove those bubbles. And I'll do this periodically throughout the process. All right, so our water's been in the sous vide for 145 degrees for 1 hour. I'm just going to cool this water off quickly by putting it into a sink full of cold water on top of a rack. We're going to let that water cool until it reaches about 80 degrees. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take the water that's just come off the sous vide and then cooled and put it into our bucket here. I'm not going to fill it completely full because we need to put our mold and our hands in there, as we'll see in a minute. I'm going to fill it to roughly about 1.5 inches or so from the top. And I'm going to pour this water in here using obviously a pint glass. And I'm going to do this as gently as I can. All right, I'll stop there. And we're going to go with our mold here. And again, remember I said that these are very easily obtained through Amazon. And this is a spherical mold, obviously, and I've cut holes in the bottom. Again, this is critically important for making clear ice cubes because any gases that remain trapped in the water are going to be able to get pushed out of the cube down into the water beneath the mold as this freezes. So I'll start by putting the bottom in. And again, I'll put that in gently. And even when you do that, you'll see that you can't see them from that angle, but I see a little bubble right over here. So I'm going to use as my baster. I'm going to squeeze that baster, stick it in, suck some water up into it. Then I'm just going to go around this mold, squirting gently with water and removing any little air bubbles I see that form on the mold. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay. Then I'm going to take the top of our mold I'm going to start by submerging it this way. And doing the same thing. I don't see a lot of bubbles here, but I'm going to go around anyway. And just make sure that even if there are bubbles in there that I can't see, we can get rid of them. All right, that's pretty good. Now, this is easier than it looks maybe on the video. I'm just simply going to take this thing and fold it over. Remember, it's a very pliable silicone rubber. And get the top pushed down into the bottom. And obviously that's going to be filled with water. And I mentioned earlier that I cut this bucket so it would be 8 inches in diameter. And the reason that I did that is because at that diameter, that will hold this mold in shape perfectly. What we're shooting for here is to have a mold kept at the top of this bucket so that as the water freezes from the top down, the cubes form in the mold, and then if we time it properly, there's going to be a layer of water in our bucket about 2 to 3 inches tall that's going to be unfrozen. That's another critical feature of making clear ice cubes, is ensuring that the top part freezes, that includes our mold, and the bottom part stays unfrozen. So if I had a bucket that was a little bit too big, that's okay too. I've done that before, and you can just fashion some hangers made out of a coat hanger or something to hold this thing up. But I like this method because you don't have to mess around with rusty coat hangers. All right. Now we're just going to very carefully pick this bucket up and put it into our insulated chamber. I'll add just a little bit more water here. And then I'm going to readjust the mold to make sure it's as close to level as possible. You don't have to be real crazy about that. All right, we'll stop there. I'm just going to readjust this mold slightly, bring it up to the top, and we want that water level just to the very bottom, and it's perfect, just to the very bottom of this mold. And that is good. We'll put this in the freezer, and we'll take them out tomorrow. You've been in there in this particular freezer for about 24 hours. The length of time is going to depend on your own freezer. You're just going to have to figure that out. So we're going to try and get these cubes out of the plastic tub. The best way to do that is over the sink. Kind of invert it. Shake them out. And that is beautiful. What we see here, exactly as we had hoped, is a nice clear layer on the top here, including our mold, and then beneath, unfrozen water, which if there were any trapped gases remaining, they would have gone down to the bottom a couple of inches. So what we're going to do is take this outside, and we're going to use our hammer and chisel to get rid of the ice surrounding the mold. Got to be a little bit careful here not to hit the cubes themselves, because you can crack them during this process. All right, that should be good. I think the rest of it we can get out in the sink. What I'm going to do is run cold water over this surface to remove this remaining ice. You don't want to chisel that off or break it off because you can crack the cubes, but it's important that you use cold water. So once the bottom of your mold where you've cut it open is exposed, you can then just break the rest off by hand without worrying about breaking the actual ice cubes on the inside. So we'll do that right now. Very nice. Now this ought to just come right out. Now the moment of truth to see whether they turned out well. And that is an unbelievably beautiful ice cube. Not a bubble in it. One of the clearest ice cubes you'll ever find. You can see these all have a rim around them. That's just from where, in between where the molds were. And that's just going to melt away when you put it in your drink of choice. That will just be the first thing to go. You can remove them with your finger if you want to, if it bothers you. But that is just a spectacular ice cube right there. Wow.